Hello and welcome. Today is our July International Coaching Federation's Orange County chapter meeting. As Dave, what is it? You dubbed it, Dave? You called it chapter meetings, right?
Did indeed, yes.
Yes. So thank you for coming. I invite all of us to please silence all your distractions so that you have an opportunity to really, connect with everyone. And, we deserve this time to develop and connect. So please do whatever that's necessary. We're very excited that you've joined us, and we're very happy to be here with you.
Dave, can you start the recording?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, yeah.
Been on through all of your text messages.
Oh, yes. And we are recording this, so just so you guys know. Who we have here, I wanted to share, we have a few people from the board today. We have Dave, who is our past president and current treasurer. We have Greta, who's membership director. We have Nahid, who is our programming director. Doug and Camber, who's laughing, but wait, before Camber, we have Doug, who is community relations. Petra and Camber, corporate outreach. And am I missing anyone? I don't think so. Oh, and me. My name is Nanod. I just wanted to let you guys welcome you and let you guys know that it's really because of you that and your presence that really makes our chapter what it is, which a lot of people have said we're very warm, welcoming, energetic, and fun, but it's because of you. So thank you for that. And I also wanted to remind everyone just a little bit about our theme for the year, which was or is to support you, all of our professional coaches here, to really have a thriving and prosperous coaching business. And then sometime back in May, we had a conversation on the board around all the current circumstances that are occurring. And we decided to enhance our theme and add to that, grow yourself and grow your business. So we didn't want it to be just about business development. We morphed it into also human development. So in a lot of, some of the things that we're doing to make sure that we intentionally accomplish this goal is we've had a lot of master level certified coaches, such as Merci right now, to come and share with us their journey on how they got to become successful, and also share with us some of their skill sets. And then we, back in February, we started a mastermind group to support those who wanted to participate around developing their business. Recently in June, we started a book club, and we just completed our second book in July. And in September, we're going to, Dave, maybe you can mute everyone just to silence the background noise for right now. In September, we're going to do The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin, and we actually have him coming I will unmute myself. Thank you, guys. So we have Rich Litvin coming, and he's in addition to the book club, he's going to be doing 2 separate meetings with us. One like a Prosperous 2.0 version, and then one where we can ask him anything we'd like. And we've really been pivoting as things morph and change and circumstances occur. We've been being very cognizant to provide everyone very relevant and timely events, just like we did with the Mark Hunter event on racism. And finally, we have been really keeping our eye on our community building. So we just don't want to forget about that in any means at all. And so we have been, for example, at the end of July, we're going to have a social event. And we had lots of social gatherings throughout the outbreak of COVID and so forth. So we will continue to do so. It's very important for us. And lastly, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to Lori Banks. Thank you so much for all of your social media work, all your volunteering. Please, everyone, get on our social media, like us, follow us, do everything you need to do. She's been providing phenomenal information. So thank you for that, Lori. And with that, I'm very, very excited to learn more about Merci and what she has to offer. And I'd like to pass it to Greta. Thank you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. So before I introduce Merci, I want to tell you, as your membership director, that if you have not yet renewed your ICF membership, please do so. Because if you don't by August, you no longer get all these fabulous benefits, one of which, of course, is us. But hey, if you don't renew, you can still join our fabulous webinars and meetings as a guest, but I urge you to renew now. And if you have any questions, just write us an email. You can send it via our website or icforangecounty.com, right, Dave? Or org.com. Anyway, with that, I'd like to introduce Merci Miglino. And I want to tell you that I go way back, I guess, as far as way back goes with Merci. I've known her now for about 3 years. She was my favorite trainer when I did my ICF training certification with the International Coach Academy. That's also, by the way, where I met Dave Huxaby. And his voice, as we all know, is unforgettable. But Mercy's voice was super unforgettable. I learned so much from her during the year that I spent being certified. And I also enrolled in her mentor program, which I really loved. And that was just several months ago, I think. And she's a trainer and a mentor, and I just can't speak highly enough about Merci. So welcome. And Dave also wants to say a couple words.
If I can find the mute button. Yes, so I was also a student of ICA, which is good because I only had to change one letter when I moved to ICF. And I think, and Greta, Merci wasn't your favourite tutor because she was my favourite tutor. And we can't share her. Merci was also the person who did my observe coaching sessions. She was very scary but very supportive, and I learned a lot, and I loved her down-to-earth East Coastiness, which served as a nice contrast from some of the things I experience sometimes in California. So I wanted to say to you all, we're doing this not as a webinar, but as a meeting, which means that we can see each other more easily and you can volunteer to talk more easily. It kind of means that we're less in control, so we count on you to keep yourselves muted, including you, Kat. And if you want to, when I'm going to be sharing the slides in a moment, and if you want to have the setup where you see the slides and Mercy's energetic presentation, then what I suggest you do is at the top, choose speaker view, and you can also pin speaker. So if you say pin video, it gets to be Merci and no one else, even if anyone else is speaking. So I will hand back over, I'll do the gesture, hand back over to Greta.
Thanks. So I'd like to read you now bio about Merci. Educated as a teacher and working as a journalist, paralegal, communications director, and campaign manager, Merci Miglino is the eldest daughter of 9 children, where she learned to motivate a divergent group toward a common goal and to persist even in the face of impossible challenges. Armed with this background and a passion for advocacy, she worked in the rough and tumble world of the New York State Legislature, serving as Director of Communications in both the State Assembly and State Senate. For the past 20 years, Merci has run a successful coaching practice and conducts training and coaching for numerous organizations, including the International Coach Academy, Coach A, Blanchard Coaching, Laser Coaching, Clearing Beliefs, and several employee assistance programs. Merci is a master certified coach who works with executives, entrepreneurs, and other practitioners. A noted speaker, she has written a book, From Doormat to Diva, Taking Center Stage in Your Life. Merci serves up a cocktail of humor, insight, education, and inspiration for life and business changing impact. Merci lives in Albany, New York with her husband, who she calls Bub. So with that, Merci, over to you. Welcome.
Yeah, there we are. Okay, so I want to thank Greta and Dave and the collective Orange County group. As I see people saying where they're coming from, they're places I have spent time in and really would have loved to go again. My daughter lived in LA for 4 years, and I got to see a lot of Orange County as well. So let's just dig right in. So with the able assistance of DJ Dave, who's going to monitor my slides, we'll get started. I just want to start here with really telling you one thing. Getting my MCC was not easy. I taught coaches for 20 years. I mentored coaches. And when it came time to finally decide I was going to go for my MCC, I think I had an expectation that it was going to be a lot easier than it was. And one of the struggles was getting the session to 30 minutes because ICF, when you submit recordings for assessment, require that it be 30 minutes, and they'll give you some grace, but not much. And I kind of, having my first recording submitted to ICF was deemed MCC level. My second, third, and fourth recordings were not. And finally, on the fifth try, I got it. So I learned a lot from that first to that last recording, not only about how to make a session 30 minutes, because this really isn't about, there's no contest. This isn't like a hot dog, eating contest where you're trying to get as much into a coaching session. You're not here to rush your clients. It's really a way of lasering in on some things that you may normally not be listening to, and utilizing your wisdom as a person, as a coach, as whatever your professional background is, and really taking that to inform your questions rather than the client. So I put together this short, in a way, slides just to sort of make sure I remember the key points to share with you. So take it away, Dave. Okay, so I really must acknowledge those people who really contribute to my understanding of this kind of approach. And I think, when I think about it, I'm a synthesizer. I often see the commonalities in things. And I took so many diverse programs, personal development coaching, and I wanted to give them their due notoriety. And that would be, of course, the coaching school I went to. Judith Garden, who is a pathwork helper, was a very incredible, impactful program for me to take. And Marion Franklin, who's also an MCC and my mentor, and she wrote the book, The Heart of Laser Focused Coaching, some of which I'm going to share with you today. Sherry Boone, who also was my mentor and observed coach, and Lion Goodman, who's there in Palo Alto. He has an incredible process for identifying beliefs and how to discreate them and recreate new ones. So all of these people, I'm going to sound, like I know what I'm doing, but I learned it all from them and I put it all together. okay? All right, slide number 2, Dave. All right, so a couple of these things really start before you get into the session. First of all, longer is not always better. I think there's, especially for new coaches, but for some seasoned coaches as well, we equate our value with the amount of time we give the client, not the value or the impact. One of the hardest things to do when I moved from, working for a living and doing this, I was like, well, I have to show up and I have to make it last long and all of those things so that people feel like they're getting their value. Well, what I learned was the most valuable thing you can give your client is efficient and yet effective coaching, especially today when everybody has, so much to do. The world moves so fast, even in a pandemic, to begin to take in that you have value even in a half hour. Because a couple of things that you do as natural for a coach, it doesn't happen that often in the real world. Just to be listened to, really listened to be seen and heard and understood is precious. It's priceless. So I think sometimes we get into it has to be an hour. And I know I do corporate coaching, and a lot of them, insist on an hour. And I do that, I know how to do that. But for my preference, I really like to have that impact. Maybe it's the New Yorker in me, but I love direct communication. Okay, so that's step 1. Just take a look at that. And if it's anything in your belief system about longer is better, maybe observe, is that really true? As you're coaching, or if you're being mentored in a group as others are coaching. All right, step 2. All right, belt one out. As a speaker, I hired a speaking coach, and it was in LA actually, but I don't remember his name. This was years ago, but one thing he taught me to get rid of nerves and to bring lightness to your speaking was to sing out what you're worried about. All right. So of course you don't do this with your client unless you're, a music coach or something, a vocal coach. But this really helped me. And I did this before my recordings. So I just would make up a song like you did when you were a kid. Now there's some neuroscience that backs this, that when you sing, there's a lightness. It's hard to be anxious and sing at the same time. So it's a little trick that I learned that I'm offering up to you. And nobody's going to see you or hear you. So, you know that saying that all of us can sing, just some of us do it better than others. That's all. All right, step 3, move. Just, do something physical before you get on a call. Any nervous energy, any distractions, there's that, I think it was, what's his name? Clutterbuck, I think. Those conversations that go on in your head prior to coaching, all right? Yes, we need to pay attention to them because they could show up in the coaching. So we want to clear that out. And one way of doing that easily is to move your body. Move your body, put on a song, sing. And believe me, the first time I heard this, I thought it was a little corny. But it works. I tend to do yoga before a session now. It just helps me get out of that distraction, calm my mind. Because all of these steps, the silly ones here, they lead to you being better able to listen at the highest level, to be really in tune with everything your client is saying. Step 4, and we'll pause for questions in a minute, 2 minutes maybe. All right, commit to listening. Now, we all know active listening is a core competency of coaching. We probably even know that there are levels of listening. What I've noticed is the more I am committed to listening, and I mean that, I really sit down and say, I'm going to listen to this. And I really don't have a great attention span because I was always in work that required me to do many things at once. So this has been a practice for me. I noticed that the first time someone says something like, okay, so what do you want to focus on in this session? Right away, I hear things. They're not the story. They're not like, oh, I need to make a decision about this job or that job. I hear I need to make a decision. And I'm listening. So, what's the urgency here? Or, boy, it sounds like she's kind of made up her mind about what she wants, but there's a should. There's something she's comparing herself to. These are, insights that come to me right out of the gate. And you know what? If this happens and you start to do this more and more, of course you check it out. You don't know for sure what you're sensing is accurate. You would check it out. I find that you can get into the coaching so quickly just by listening. So you don't have to worry about every detail of the story, because we all know that the story is less important than who is this person. What has them telling me this today? What makes it a problem for them? It's usually some belief, idea, thought, mindset, or mental mistake, as they call it in CBT. That's usually what's getting in the way, almost all. To be at an MCC level, your coaching has to be transformational, not transactional. So that's, kind of links back to really committing to listen. For example, the other day I was coaching, and a woman came to the call and she said, I'm going to change this significantly, but she was like, she wanted to do something. You could hear, I really want to take this step, but for some reason I'm hesitating. I really don't know what that's about. I mean, it's not like I have to ask my mother for permission. Now that was like an aside almost, but she said a critical word, permission. And all of a sudden she had herself in a role of parent-daughter. And that was interesting to me. So I said to her, oh, I heard, you don't have to ask your mom for permission. What if you gave yourself permission? What would that look like? Now, it was a throwaway. In a way, she was sort of an aside. But I often think that people, on those throwaway comments, have a lot, they're juicy. They tell you a lot about the client. Okay, step 5. All right. The other thing I learned is coaches, especially new coaches, but they have a tendency to avoid observations, all right? We don't want to be leading the client. We don't want to sound like we have an opinion or judgment, or it's sounding like a direction. So we avoid them. We tend to reflect first. But an observation is more than that. An observation is noticing a contradiction, maybe an unrealistic expectation. I'm listening, and then I connect the dots. So I might say something like, well, on the one hand, I hear that you're really excited about your job. And on the other hand, I'm hearing, that you may, somehow you think 7 years is too long to be in one job. What do you see about that? Or using metaphor is another great way to share an observation. And, for example, another client I coached, she was talking about how she was really wanting this person she's been in a relationship with for like 8 years to marry her. And she was saying all the things she was doing to try to get him to marry her unsuccessfully. And she went on and on. And finally I said, it sounds like a person who's going to the hardware store for milk. What do you see about that? In just like that, yeah, I can't say, it sounds like you're trying to change somebody, and you can't change people. I didn't have to go there. I just said, I didn't even say you. Sounds like someone who's going to the hardware store for milk. What do you think? So I always ask a question after an observation. It keeps it as an offering. It says I don't have to be right. It says that the client can go anywhere they want with it. it takes a little boldness. But as you know, had the privilege of once having a session with Thomas Leonard, and he was very fond of saying, go for the bold thing. Coaching is supposed to be provocative. It's supposed to get you thinking in a different way. It's supposed to wake you up, So one of the things that Marion Franklin taught me was you soften the delivery of an observation, but not the message. So I would say, well, it sounds like, someone who's trying to change someone. What do you think? You can even use very strong language. I actually did this with a client once. This gentleman was a VP of a company, and he had been taking on more and more and more responsibilities, and then saying, in the coaching session, how all these people who are giving him more to do really shouldn't give him any more to do. He has enough to do. And I was like, not what has you saying yes, if you already have too much to do. And he went on to blame everybody, his boss, the team. He was in a blame mode. So finally I said, it sounds like, someone who's giving their power to other people, sort of like a victim. What do you think? He was quiet because it just jolted him. And he didn't react right away to it, but by the end of the session, he was feeding that back to me. So I knew it was powerful. But can you see how that would really break through? An observation, there's no surprise that in the core competencies, you have direct, or the old ones, direct communication, and then evoking awareness, creating awareness. It's often sharing your thoughts, intuitions, inklings with your client that evokes awareness. It's not always a question. And I noticed that if I see something like this person's acting like a victim, I hear the judgment in my head and the opinion, and then then I kind of unattach to it and say, what in here is something that might serve my client? So I only offer these with the only intention of moving my client forward, moving the conversation forward. It's not a push. It's just being concise and direct. And it's truly very impactful. Let's go to one more step, and then we can get some conversation going. The Holy Coaching Agreement. All right. Oh my God. I mean, I have never gone to a mentor call where someone didn't have struggles with the coaching agreement. So the first thing that I learned to laser in for 30 minutes, explore what the client has said before you contract the agreement. Because the first thing the client comes with is only the tip of the iceberg. It's rarely the thing. Now, if you're coaching people who are very emotionally aware, very in tune with their feelings, they may lay it out all there at first. But usually, the person is telling you one thing, but it's not really what's getting in the way. So, we tend to look at it as a formula, even though we know it's not a formula. There is an organic way to make this happen. It's the first thing you want to realize is you're listening at that committed level. You're really listening. And then you might have to probe a little bit. Like, for example, this client about making a decision, she said, well, I just want to be comfortable. I just, I'm tired of being back and forth with this. I just want to let it go. Now, I'm not going to ask her, so what do you need from the session today? She just told me, let it go. So instead I'm going to say, so what would help you to let it go? Or what do you need to let it go? I'm going to probe a little bit, because what I got to was, in that particular thing, is she had to give up this idea that she should pursue something versus what she really wanted to do. Then when that started to come to light, there was a little bit of shift. That's when I asked, and it's about 7 or 10 minutes into a 30-minute session. That's when I ask, okay, you know, I might reflect what I've heard so far. So how can the coaching help you today? And I might even say, so how can the coaching help you with this perspective that, all right? Or what would help you to give yourself permission? All right? And you might have to recontract, that's okay. One exception to this is if your client is throwing the kitchen sink at you, you know, like, you know, I got up this morning and I fell out of bed on the left foot, and, you know, they're just going on and on and on. You know, sometimes at the end of that, you have to say, okay, so what do you need from the coaching today? Because they're all over the place. It's just how some people unpack stuff. So you might want to need, you know, at that point, narrow it down, but you will eventually recontract. Okay. All right, let's take a break with the slides. And I'd love some questions, concerns, comments, yeah, buts. I love the yeah, buts.
Hi, Mercy.
Oh, hi, Nathan.
So when you said you may have to recontract, so you've got in 7 to 10 minutes into the session, and they've got, you know, they're telling you every like sensation in their body, and
yeah.
So what do you need from the session today? They're able to like, oh, okay, well, I think it's this. You might have to recontract 20 minutes into the session, or what do you mean by?
Okay. The anatomy of this is that, you know, you're listening for the belief, the thought, or the idea that's getting in the way. So you maybe, you know, it sounds like you really want to do this, and yet there's some concern about what others think, you know. So what do you see about that? All right, when we probe, and then the client has an awareness. All right, yeah, maybe I just need it to be important to me and not to everyone else. When you hear that, that's the leverage point. That's the point in the conversation. You do not go backwards. At that point, you say, oh, okay. So what would, you know, if that wasn't what you initially said, you might say, okay, so where are we with what you wanted to get from this session? Or how does this link to that? In MCC level coaching, you must loop back to the agreement, no matter what. They want you to check in often, and it can't sound like formula. So you want to, you know, hey, so sounds like, you know, you're having a new awareness here. How does that relate to what you wanted to get for the session? All right. And what many coaches do when they have the awareness, there's some tendency to go backwards, you know, like, well, you also said this here. No, if there's a shift, ride out that wave, you know, put on the surfing music and ride out the wave, because from there, it's easy. It is easy.
What I find myself doing sometimes is, you know, I may see the link and then kind of keep on like kind of almost, you know, restating the words that they said earlier in the session.
Yeah.
You know, so how does that relate to your, you know, being aligned with your core being?
Yeah.
And then they say the thing, and then like, you know, the session goes on and I keep on going back. And how does that align with your core being? But maybe they're looking for an opportunity to recontract. Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of typical ones. Like they'll say, I need to make a decision, or I need clarity, or I really want to act like my authentic self.
Yes.
Okay. And so, okay, so first of all, I would ask, so what do you mean by your authentic self? Because this is sort of an aside, but I notice a lot of times people say that as if their authentic self is missing. It's not missing, it's there. You just have to declutter all the hoarding crap you put on top of it. So, yeah, but now you're into the session and they're getting a little awareness, and now they're thinking, you know, it really isn't about clarity. I think I'm very clear on this. I'm just afraid to go for it.
Okay, right.
That's a little bit, and that's when I would say it. And you're right, use their language, absolutely. That's critical.
Okay, and thank you everybody for letting me just like ask my question after question after question. But one more. So it's about that clarity piece, and I noticed that in sessions I will say like, it sounds like you already have clarity, you know, and
Yeah.
And I for me I'm like, you know, session's done. Like, why are we still talking? You got it.
Exactly. Why are you still talking? It's
Okay.
It's called WAIT. Why am I talking? All right. We had 2 sessions today, and mentor coaching lasted 20 minutes. And there was a significant shift.
Huh.
Just because you had the tenacity, but also you had the, you know, the confidence in a way in the coaching process to say, you know, it sounds like this woman tonight was like, it sounds like you've already made a decision. I hear you, you know, you're very excited about your job. You really love it. So what do you see about that and this decision? And she said, you know, I think I'm just thinking I should go for the upwardly mobile position, but I don't really want to shift. All right. So what do you need to support you in doing that?
Thank you.
Never go backwards. If there's a shift, I don't care if it's 10 minutes in, don't go backwards. Do all the designing actions, what could get in the way, what have you learned about yourself, who or what can support you, all of those kinds of questions. But, you know, you can get pretty far in 20 to 30 minutes. Great questions, Nathan, thanks. All right, who else has something?
I have a question. When is it a good time to bring up like past agreements, like actions or practices that they had said that they wanted to take on? The reason I'm asking is sometimes if I do that in the beginning, it kind of takes like almost half hour of the call sometimes, you know, and I've never gotten the agreement yet.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend around that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the one way that I was taught about it, which I really have come to really see, that's my agenda. When I get on the call and say, so how are things, you know, where are you on your action plan? Or, you know, you set this big objective, where are you with it? That's my agenda. I'm starting the call with my agenda. Instead, so what do you want to focus on today? And sometimes, you know, I'm coaching someone in AARP, you know, through Blanchard Coaching, and we have a big coaching development plan. It was based on a 360 and DISC and all this other stuff that the company did. And sometimes I always start with, where do you want to start? Sometimes she does have new insights or something else is relative to her plan. But other times it's in the moment something is on her mind. I want my client to set the agenda. Now in executive leadership, corporate coaching, you have a shared agenda. Even if the company is paying for the coaching, you, the coachee, and the sponsor have to be on the same page. So if they come and they say, you know, well, I really got stuck this week, blah, 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 I can say, so what do you see about that and the goals you set for your coaching? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. I see another hand. Jen.
Yes. Hi. So what if you have a coachee who processes by talking, and 10 minutes in, right? And I am listening. In fact, I'm exhausted after 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes. And it's, you've already lost 10 minutes. So I guess my question is, I know that I think the value that I can add is if I can feed back to him a synthesis of what I heard to validate that could lead on the discussion. But at times that doesn't work. It just almost, yeah. So advice and counsel, please.
Right. Okay. Great question. Couple of tricks I learned from other people. First of all, you can pause the coaching. If you don't like the word interrupt has a negative connotation. But as the coach, because you're responsible for the process, you can pause your client. All right. And one way to do that is to use the client's name very quietly. And they're going off and on, and you just say, Jen. Most people will stop. And then you say, whatever is true for you. One of the things that we forget is we have to come clean with our clients, right? That's why we share observations, to keep it clean, to keep it real, to keep it authentic. So if I'm lost in the details, I will often say, wow, there's a lot of details here. Is it okay if we pause and, I reflect back what I've heard so far? Or I've actually heard a coach do this, okay, I'm hearing a lot here and I'm just curious, if you had to bottom line this, what would it be? And it's funny because the first time I had to do that as a coach, and I said that to someone and I said to her, I'm noticing that we're going in circles. We're kind of going over the same ground. I'm wondering if you see, what you see about that. She burst out laughing and she said, oh, my family, they tell me all the time, I talk too much and I talk in circles. So even with the remainder of our coaching, every time she found herself doing that, she'd laugh and say, oh, I'm doing it again. And, we talked about that. I said, what has you talking in circles? And you know what we got to one day in a coaching session? I said, she really wants to be heard. She doesn't feel like people really get her. So she has to over-explain things. And that, that showed up in her relationships.
Well, so, I was going to say, that's, and it's funny because it's almost like a comment because I want to ensure that he feels heard. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that throughout building the relationship, it will be appropriate to say, Chris,
absolutely,
and play it out. But initially, when you're trying to develop that rapport and that trust, 30 minutes is tough.
Yeah. Well, the first session I do is a little bit longer because you're collecting goals and it's a bigger picture. But I would suggest that if you're having trouble following them, it's disingenuous to let them go on. If they're, remember, the way a client does one thing is generally how he does most things. So what I find hysterical is when they are coming to the coaching with a behavior that is the very thing that's getting in the way of their situation. Oh, I had that the other day. I can't even remember what it was, but it was like, and you know what? I see that. So I have to be genuine. So when I was taught coaching, they had a module called withholding. It's like you cannot withhold what you're seeing it's part of the process. It's part of your value. You have an outside, perspective. So one of the reasons we don't do this is the fear of not creating trust, the fear of I may offend, the fear that I'll lose the client. A lot of those are just not helpful, and they're not always true. Like I had somebody the other day who just kept going around and around. I finally said it to her, and she's very much in blame and victim mode. And I just said at one point, this was the first call, but I said, I'm noticing that you're really hanging on to this perspective. And one of the, signs of someone being coachable is the ability to loosen their grip on the way they see things. And if you think you can do that, then I'll consider coaching you. If not, you might be better supported by another, support. I don't diagnose, I just say you may need something else in addition to the coaching. because she really couldn't get out of the victim mode, no matter what I said. So I think, you owe it to your clients. But really, if your intention is you're present, you're warm, you're inviting, and you're really with your clients, don't be afraid to say what you're seeing.
And I want to really validate that, because that's what happened in the following coaching call. And I got over myself, the fear, if you will. And it was like, no, let's go. And it was fabulous. And there was no issue about, lack of building trust. In fact, at the end of the conversation, it was like, thank you. So I just wanted to reconfirm that. Yes, thank you.
Oh my God, that's so important. Because when I come clean and real with my clients, that builds trust. That builds trust. They're not thinking about, or overly concerned about my opinion, because they know what I'm seeing and I share it with them. That's a good point. Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
Merci.
Yes, Sophie from Trinidad. Mwah. How are you?
Great to be here with you again. So I have a but for you, because because I'm just wondering, are there different kinds of ramblers and rambling? Because I tend to be somebody who, when I'm invited to ask what's going on, man, I can just go on and on. But I have gained some real insights and awareness just listening to myself. So I tend to think that allowing people to, not go in circles, but go on and on does have its benefits.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a verbal processor. I think out loud. And some of your clients, they'll even like coach themselves out loud. I thought of this, and then I said, that's not true. And then if it's moving them toward an awareness, let it roll, because they're doing the work for you. You can just sit back and let them do the work. But if it's not productive, they're going in circles. Or the other thing that happens is they come with a limiting perspective. Then they start talking about, they're giving you evidence like they're on Law and Order. Here's exhibit A, why my perspective is accurate. Here's exhibit B. And next thing you know, they have just dug themselves in deeper to the perspective that wasn't helpful in the first place. And that's something that we can really prevent. Just by pointing it out. So it sounds like you have a lot of evidence here as to why things can't change. I'm wondering what you see about that and what you want for the coaching session, or, how's that working for you? The Dr. Phil question. So how is that working for you? Because clearly it's not, or you wouldn't have been bringing it up. All right. And I've used that analogy. It sounds like you're giving me, exhibit A to B, A to Z about why this is the way it is. So, how is that working? Or what is it costing you? Don't be afraid to ask those sometimes perceived as negative questions. People move away from pain. Think about any major life change you ever went through. It was because you were so uncomfortable where you were that the uncertainty of the future was welcome in some way. Like nobody wakes up one morning and says, I think I'll quit smoking. If they have no reason to do it, they aren't choking, their daughter isn't looking at them and saying, I don't want you to die. That would be me. Then, you're highly inspired, not even motivated. But, until that point, until you recognize it's costing you something, you may not make that big change. So it's good to point out. I know some coaches want to stick with the positive, but if just focusing on the positive worked, you wouldn't need coaching. Maybe. All right. Anyone else before we get to the rest of it?
Merci, this is Doug. I kind of want to take away from what you're saying, and correct me if I've got it wrong, that the goal here is 30 minutes of focus coaching. The goal isn't a stopwatch for 30 minutes of time. And with my clients, I do executive coaching. I started out first with saying, is this still a good time to talk? And I want to get them committed, and they always tell me, oh, I'm really busy, I got this stuff. But we're gonna take a few seconds to get them committed that they are going to focus. And I educate all my clients that they're the timekeeper. I tell them, look, I schedule all my coaching slots for an hour, but how much time you take is up to you. I have some clients that take 20 minutes. I always tell them I have one client that if I cut him off at 59, he'd feel cheated. So it's up to you what you want to do. And, you know, if they're rambling, I'll bring them back. But I'm not going to set the agenda, and I'm not going to be the stop clock, the timekeeper. And that's what I hear you saying. Is that correct?
Right. What I'm proposing here and what I've witnessed is that you can organically, it could be just organic, a 30-minute session. It doesn't, when I think about the hour-long sessions that I do, it's funny, somewhere in the middle of that, there's some awareness, there's something going on, and we just pick up something else, or we continue with it. This isn't speed for speed's sake, right? I mean, I really honor what you were saying about, you know, getting people to commit, because nothing's worse than getting on a call with an executive client and he's taking phone calls. All of a sudden, you know, he's texting or something. So inviting that. But here's the thing. You know, if they just wanted to ramble on with their life for an hour, it's not coaching. And I know that's an extreme example. This idea that we should allow them to talk as long as they want, if it's productive, because I am the gatekeeper of a productive session, of moving the coaching session forward. That is my responsibility as a coach. I don't have to have an agenda, but that is what I am there for, to put some container here for productive conversation. And that may vary from client to client. Like you said, sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's not. And I really, you know, believe that that's something that we are responsible for as coaches, to manage the session.
Good, thank you. That helps.
Right, it's the coach's agenda, but you're a partner in that. So that's your part of the partnership, is to manage the process so that it's productive.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's the bottom line. Yeah. All right. Anybody else before we go back to the slides?
I have one more question. What is one of your favorite like questions for I call it coaching request, but coaching agreement is what you're saying, right? Like, what's a great question that you love to ask to get them to open up to it?
To what they want to achieve in the session?
Mm-hmm.
That's the coaching agreement, right?
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. And some people call it contracting. What it does is, it's a true partnership. So in order for you to boldly go where no man has gone before with your client, you need permission. And the coaching agreement is permission. We're going in this direction. So generally, I say, you know, so either what do you need from the coaching today? What would be of value today? What would you like to walk away with? Those kinds of questions, all right? And they can vary. And like I said, it's not just that you want to be on the same page, but it helps you, okay, they set the agenda, and now I have permission to probe, to ask, and to, you know, move forward. And if I feel like there's a direction that we haven't agreed to, then you have to say, you have to say it out loud, the contract, and like, wow, it sounds like we're going down another path here. I'm wondering, and to me, never split them up. If they said, I'm coming here because, I can't communicate with my partner. Okay. And then halfway down there, he's talking about, problems he has managing a team. And it seems like it's different. The best question I found, instead of saying, well, which one do you want to focus on? Okay, so I'm hearing kind of like a communication thing with your team, and you came wanting this from your partner. I'm wondering how they might be linked.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you know what? They're almost always linked. Because it's based on a prevailing perspective that the person has. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's what I've seen. You're welcome. All right, let's go back to the slides. All right. So we did the Holy Coaching Agreement. And okay. So here's something to play with. So Jason, he tells you he's the client. He says he's got a new job. And after a few months of, it's taken him a while to get the job, and he's really excited about it. But he comes to coaching and he says, I'm really putting a lot of pressure on myself, to keep up with those who've been with the company for several years. And, I'm worried that, if I don't, succeed or catch up really quickly, others are going to think I'm flailing. Okay. So if you look at that, you would think about what's your very first question, or what would you reflect back? Because to me, you always reflect what you heard. It's a form of acknowledgement. You don't want to just launch into a question. So if you were to summarize this, think about how you would do that. Think about what your first question is. And if you don't want to do that, alternatively, you can look at this and think about what is the idea, thought, or belief that's getting in the way here. So just jump right in when you have something, because I can't see you, but I want to leave this on the screen. I think I can see you. Let's see. No. Okay. So just unmute yourself and. All right. So, the chat's good too. So Sophie says, let's get to what you say, Sophie. Sounds like you're feeling unsure about himself. Okay. That's true. All right. He's pretty much told us that. Anything else you're noticing? And I see, let's see, managing one's expectations. I'm too vain to put my reading glasses on. Is that ours? Who said that? Yeah. Yeah. That's the theme of this conversation. What goes through my mind is, you just started and you're comparing yourself to people who have been there a lot longer than you. And you're predicting the future, meaning if I don't catch up, then I'll be flailing, which is kind of black and white. Many other things might be possible. So the overwhelming theme here is managing expectations or comparing yourself to others. They show up in coaching a lot, don't they? Yeah. So with this little scenario, you can see that it's really rich. There's a lot here, and it's like, really, it would take somebody a minute to say this. And so you would reflect back, right? What did you hear? And you would do it very summarized and sort of a succinct way. And that's the other thing. If you want to really keep the balance in a partnership with coaching, The coach has to learn to be succinct. Otherwise, they're talking as much as their client. And when that happens, there's a tendency to fall into leading. And certainly for an ICF recording, you really don't want to be speaking more than about, 30% of the time. Okay, so questions, curiosities about that, you can put them in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and yes, I'm curious to learn more. Where might this pressure be coming from? Exactly. So yeah, he said he's putting a lot of pressure, or did he say he was putting pressure on himself? He is putting a lot of pressure. Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you notice about that pressure? Or what has you putting so much pressure on yourself? There's a lot there. Yeah, go ahead.
Merci, I'm curious if we were to go to the keeping up part, like asking a question like what makes you think that you aren't keeping up? At that point, are we going into a conversation of like a right wrong, or like he needs to like defend himself?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the concerns that comes up is I kind of heard two things: putting a lot of pressure on myself, and because I'm afraid I'm going to be seen as not, flailing if I don't keep up.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't pick out one thing or another. I would say, I would reflect that, and then you can say, sounds like there's, whatever you're noticing, that there's an expectation that you should be somewhere that you're not.
Mm.
So what do you think?
Nice.
That, initially you might summarize it and say, okay, you might start with, so what would be helpful here? Sometimes you just can't jump right into it because it's really, but really it has to be your second or third question. You've already seen this. You can't unsee it, right? And when I first started coaching, I would see these things, and then I would ask 7 questions, trying to get the client to see what I'm seeing. And then the first thing the first indication that are leading, you start to ask yes or no questions. Bing! I'm trying to get that person subtly to where I think they should go, instead of saying, I have a thought. Can I share it with you? And then I tell them. Asking permission's okay. In MCC level coaching, it's not expected, because you have created such a strong agreement that it's built in. Agreement is permission in a way. Yeah. That's a good question, though. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead. Anybody else? Yours, it took them a while to get the job. Yeah, that's good data. Sometimes I hear things, but I don't react or say anything about them right away. I kind of tuck them back here in the data bank because it might come around. But it also helps me, it informs my questions without informing my client. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So all of this, even though it's very simple, is rich, isn't it? And it shouldn't take you an hour to get somewhere with this, because the client here is giving you quite a bit to work with right off the bat, so to speak. Not always that way. Yeah. Anything else here? I can't see everybody, so just jump right in.
This is Rafael. I wonder to what extent you may enter in what he's saying about fear of failing.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of failing. And wouldn't that be something that is at the core of, or goes beyond the actual
Yes.
example.
Yeah, because he even, let's say he used the word fear, that would be easy, right? Because you would just, respond to his language. And fears, fears are a big reason why people get stuck. And they're rarely based on evidence, right? I mean, you've heard the acronym maybe, FEARS is false evidence appearing real. And it's really whenever I had so much anxiety at one point in my life as a result of burnout. And, just think about people's fears. They're never afraid of like the best thing happening. They're afraid in a way that the worst thing will happen. And so you have to bring that into the light. You have to shine the light there. The first time I heard a coach say that your job is not to help people, and it was jolting. And she said, no, your job is to shine a light on the dark spaces, on the blind spots, so that your client can see what they've been missing. And when I think of it like that, not only takes a lot of pressure off you, but it's also like, yeah, I got to shine a light on that. Like, let's say I said, so it sounds like you're afraid that if you don't succeed, that others, that if you don't catch up with these people who have been there for years, that you will not succeed. What else is possible? Or what else could happen? Because if they say, well, I guess they could be just seeing it as I'm new and I need some, it's going to take me a while. Now, with that shift in perspective, what client will likely start to give you organically is what steps he has to take. That's the beautiful part about listening for the leverage, for the awareness. And that is when you either recontract or contract. So how can the coaching help you there? And usually they start telling you, well, I think you know what? I need a mentor. Maybe I need to go find somebody in the company who will help me, navigate this. And maybe, maybe I need to identify a few things I can do because, it's true that it's not necessarily that I'm going to fail, or if I don't catch up, that they're going to think I'm flailing. That's one possibility, but it's not the only one, right? Yeah. All right, I see Lucy. Okay, so the thing about notice, this is Lucy's question. I'm noticing, let's say you would say that, you're noticing this. He wants to be seen in a good light. And then you would say, to me, I would use his words, and you don't have to put a positive spin on it. Like, is there anyone in particular in the company that he cares about how they see him? That's, to me, that isn't even out there yet. It's sort of it has a direction to it. And it's strategy. Strategy happens after an awareness and not before. I don't care if your client comes and says, I need a plan. My favorite is, I got to manage my time better. Okay, I've been teaching time management for years. And I'm going to tell you something. Everyone thinks that there's some magical formula to how to organize your time. I have never had anyone come to coaching who wasn't generally organized, at least to the point where they're successful, or they wouldn't be getting coaching. But what I notice is there's a lot of misconceptions about time. Like, there's never enough time. I think I have more time than I actually do. Other people look like they're doing a whole lot more than I am in the same amount of time. There's a lot of just misconceptions about it. So even if a client says, I need a plan, don't go into strategy. Don't say, okay, so what do you want to do by when? Who can help you? There's been no shift. That person, there's something getting in the way of him developing or her developing a plan. Because my experience is most people really know how to do that. It's like someone says, I need some motivation. I have to finish a deadline. Okay, so what's getting in the way? Oh, the dog's barking. The kids are home. Okay, what else? And then they start to say, well, I don't feel really confident about doing this, and I think I'm hesitating because of that. Bingo, we have new awareness. Yeah. Okay, I can't see what time it is, so I'm just gonna go back to the slides, and then we can have time at the end if we have time. Okay, and Nancy, your questions are good, but they go to strategy. There's no shift yet. All right. Okay, so let's see. The two questions you keep in your head that you never share with the client, as this came from Marion Franklin, is why are they telling me this? And what makes this a problem to them? It's rarely that there's a gap in knowledge. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a gap and they need training or they need to know more about something. But generally, what makes it a problem is how they're looking at it. Every situation is neutral. It's the meaning or the perspective we approach it with that makes it a problem. And that's hard to wrap your head around. I mean, this pandemic is neutral. It is what it is. Now I can say, you know what? I like that I've slowed down. I like that I'm out walking more. Thank God I can get to the beach, whatever, right? If I look at it like that, it's the same pandemic. I've just, put a positive spin on it. Or I can focus on all the things I'm missing. I love to travel. I've not been traveling. My two favorite sisters live in California. I haven't seen them in a year, blah, blah, blah. So the pandemic is neutral. It's the meaning we give to something, which is hard in this world because people, you just poke your head out outside that window and people are so reactive. They're so all or nothing, so black and white about things, which is really truthful. Yeah. All right, so common coaching themes. If you can get your hand on, it's called Common Mental Mistakes. You can just Google it, and this comes from Dr. Aldo Pucci, who developed this for cognitive behavioral therapy. It's great human behavior data to have. It's the common perspectives that get in the way of someone progressing or potentializing themselves or moving forward. Yeah, thank you, Dave. It's very helpful. It's a great thing. I mean, to me, the more you learn about the human, the human condition, how we think, neuroscience, the more informed your coaching becomes, and you will get quicker at identifying things. And it's okay to have a judgment. To me, I have a judgment, but then I squeeze out all the judgment and I'm left with an observation. And that's what I share. Okay, next slide. Okay, all right, and these are those two questions, all right? Why is this a problem for this person? Why are they telling me the things they are telling me? Okay. All right, next.
So just real quick. So, I mean, I wrote it down. It's my new rule, but why do we never ask the client, why is this a problem for you?
Okay. First of all, why has, I fought this like a rebel.
What might be some reasons this is a problem for you?
Okay, so what makes this a problem for you?
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, that's the only time I'd ask that is if he hasn't told me something.
Uh-huh.
Right? But most times they have a story around why it's a problem for them. But you're listening for what's the perspective?
Okay.
Mindset. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a conversation stopper to ask that in a certain way.
Yeah. Like, why am I?
So what's the big deal? Why are we even?
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, so what's the problem here? You know, just take that job, or just march in there and have that conversation. And don't laugh that out. That'll happen to me. Like, I listened to this woman in this relationship, and part of me was saying, oh God, I've been there. Get out now. You know? So instead, I'd say, you know, you can share your experience. You don't want to make it about you, and you don't want it to make it advice, but it does help build rapport to say simply, you know, I've experienced something similar to this. So I'm curious, what's in it for you to stay there? Or I might even soften the delivery more. You know, you sound like somebody who really knows what they want in some ways. And I'm wondering, you know, and given that I use this a lot, you sound like a smart person. And one thing I know about people is if they're continuing to do something, there's something in it for them. And it may not make logical, rational sense, but when you think about it, what's the benefit of staying in this relationship? Because we don't often ask ourselves that question, right? I mean, I remember the first time I had lost 100 pounds somewhere along the line, and someone said to me, so, you know, what is your overweight doing for you? And I was like, I just wanted to smack her, okay? Because I was like, what do you mean? I've spent my whole life trying to change this. But there were, once I really looked at it, there were lots of reasons why I kept that bulk on. You know, I was a woman in a very, very highly charged political male environment, and you were either, as a woman, you either chased around a desk or you acted like one of the boys. And since I'm only 5 foot, I put on a little weight, and I could, you know, run with the wolves that way. But there's always some reason we do something. I don't even like the word sabotage. That implies that I'm deliberately trying to harm myself. I'm not. I'm working with an old strategy. I'm working with something that once worked and it doesn't anymore. Or I wouldn't want to change it. Okay. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh no, I want to talk about this. So we talked about the shift is the leverage point, right? Once you hear that awareness, or maybe I could, you know, maybe I can have that conversation. I'll just do A, B, and C. Okay. The shift organically usually brings up actions. You know, you've had, you know, a good session, 20 minutes into it, they are now coming up with possibilities they didn't have when they first started. That's the bonus of, that's the benefit rather of evoking awareness. The actions don't come from you. They generally come, you know, in master level coaching, they're coming from your client as a result of new awarenesses. So you might have to ask, okay, from that new perspective, what's your next steps? But you want it to come from them. And when you sum up the conversation for the day, one of the things I got out of the habit of is me summing up what happened. You get greater accountability and buy-in if they sum up their learning for themselves. So you can even say, so what are you taking away today? You know, what did you learn about yourself? Or, you know, you can even ask, you know, I'm wondering, does this show up anywhere else in your life? Okay. So it's like uphill until you get to what's really the mindset that's getting in the way. Then you probe at that, you challenge it a bit. And then they start to shift, and then, whoa, you're rolling downhill because they've got actions, they're designing, you're asking what could get in the way, who or what do you need to support you to get here, what else can you do, what else is a great question, because people have a tendency to just give you the first thing on their mind. And when you ask them what else, they get more creative. All right. And of course, always want to ask, when they've had that shift, you want to say, so where are we with what you wanted to accomplish in this session? Okay, I think that's the end. Dun-dun-dun-dun, 7, yeah. All right, so we do have some time for questions, right? Oh, good. All right, so, oh, good, I get to see all your beautiful faces again. So any questions, thoughts, takeaways?
Yeah, I have
I'm
a
so
quick
glad I'm on
question,
your-
Mercy.
Oh, okay, I heard 2 at once. I heard someone say my name. Oh, with you
Just so
first.
glad that I'm on your mailing list, that's all.
So thanks tons, but here's a question. So I have a corporate client, and he just doesn't want to seem to play with coaching. I mean, he just doesn't want to seem to divulge what's really on his mind. He's doing this as part of you know, I guess he was told to do it. He was told to do it, and it's not as though he comes feeling reticent, but he just doesn't want to reveal any of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so after 15 minutes into it, I just want to say, you know, why are we here?
Yeah. You know what? That's coming clean. You know, I mean, it's true. Sometimes you get these clients and they're, you know, it's almost corrective action. You know, they're not there because the company wants to potentialize them. I've had experiences where they want to fire the person, but this is the last ditch effort so they can sleep at night after they fired them. So I've had a few like this, and generally, always, I want the company's expectations for the coaching. I want the coachee's expectations. Then they have to be merged so we're all on the same page. There has to be that agreement, or you will find that, you know, someone's evasive. Now, I had one time, same thing, Greta. And I finally said, like, about the 3rd session, I was like, you know, I'm noticing that maybe your heart really isn't in this. I'm wondering what you see about that. I mean, it's true. Yeah. You're sensing that. And one time I said, you know, and I got the response, well, I don't really want to be here. Okay, but you did agree to be here. So given that you agreed, now this is your space. You are in control of this space. You know, I assure them that what is in our conversation is confidential. So sometimes, like, you know, I had one guy who just in the beginning just said, well, you know, he just spewed, you know, and then eventually he came to okay, you know what? Maybe I'm going to use this space, like, because if I want to change my job, it's still going to be helpful. Okay, let's go. But it started with, you know, me saying, it really doesn't sound like you want to be here.
Mm. Okay, so follow my gut. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then just ask a question. Make sure it's like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greta. Anyone else? I have to admire your hat, Camber. Yeah, nice hat. Yeah. Okay.
I'll ask another question.
Head.
Since we get to have an MCC coach, so at our fingertips, you know, kind of following Greta's point on following your intuition. So sometimes I have an intuition of something to ask, but I get nervous or concerned or scared. Some sort of fear pops up,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't go down that route. I don't know, any suggestions other than experience and time to overcome?
That was my too. But you know what? The fact that you're aware of it is really the beginning. right? The way we move forward in being more emotionally intelligent, and let's face it, coaching is a high level of communication based on, emotional intelligence, which, unlike your IQ, can be improved. So you have awareness. You say, I'm hesitating here. I'm wondering what that's about. Then accept it. Like, look at it without judging yourself. Not saying, oh, I shouldn't have these thoughts, or I should be over this, or, because sometimes we get these awarenesses and we just put them up against a judgment. And it's almost like slapping them down. You cannot really change a perspective and let it comes out, and you just, you're like a coach in the mist, like those gorilla in the mist. You're just observing, what's this about? This is really helpful in diversity training, to really understand your biases. So acceptance is the second part of it. Awareness, accepting, this is a challenge for me. I wonder what that's about. Let me look at it. Then, and only then, can you move to action.
Okay.
I was a big fan of just like learning a concept and then slapping it on and pretending this is who I am. It's not sustainable. Yeah. I wanted to skip over that part of all the icky stuff about judging myself. And one of my favorite ones is, I should know this already. I've been coaching for X amount. You should have heard me when I got failed again for the MCC. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to storm the ICF headquarters. I was so, I should know this already. And you know what? Of course, coaching is helpful for the coaches. A coach said to me, according to who? And it just stopped me in my tracks. According to me, okay, that's great, but it's not working for you. What else could be more accurate? Yeah. Good question.
Well,
But
we're coming up to our time.
Yes, thank you.
Don't want to interrupt you, Mercy.
No. I just wanted to make sure we were not going past your time.
No, I just want to make sure that, you're so fabulous, as you know how I feel about you, but you must be a little tired from talking for, good grief, an hour and a half. Thank you. And if anyone doesn't have any last minute comment or question, I think this is probably a good point to wrap it up. We got lots of thank yous in the chat. Thank you again, Mercy. The thank yous are rolling in on the chat, and we can't thank you enough for being here with us and sharing your insights. I took some notes, and I bet other people have too. And thanks everyone for your participation, for your questions. Don't forget to look on the YouTube channel in a couple days or so for the audio. And again, if you haven't renewed your membership, now's the time to do it. So we're going to sign off, and we've got 17 big thank yous in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was awesome, Mercy. Thank you.
Thank you.